Hello and welcome back to the Chatsuke podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews and discussions. I'm your host, Drankin Thomas Hughes, and today I'm going to be talking about a show that I recently finished in the past, maybe week or two. And I'm going to talk about not just the series itself, which is 2 seasons, but also the movie as well, because obviously I essentially binge watched the whole thing, apart from like a couple of episodes, which I'll get into in a minute, and that is Blue Lock, the Japanese anime series based on the manga of the same name, which focuses on a huge group of Japanese strikers, or up-and-coming strikers that want to basically make it big, like, you know, your run-of-the-mill, well-established football strikers around the world, you know, your Rooney's, your Messi's, etc., etc. So it's all about them trying to become the next best thing, essentially. But to do that, they go through a camp called Blue Lock, which is like a privately run organization that only allows strikers in, and it tries to find the best striker to then eventually put into the Japanese national team in hope of winning the World Cup. And obviously the show came out in 2022, before returning in 2024 with both the movie and the second season. Obviously, I started to watch this probably during when the second series might have been airing. I watched the first 2, maybe 3 at a push episodes, but I never found myself getting into it. I never found myself hooked on it. It was one of those ones where it was a slow start. Like, it was interesting. I found a lot of stuff cool with it, but I just wasn't in a binge watch mood from a couple of episodes, like I have been with, say, like Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, shows like that, where I've literally watched the first few episodes and been like, I'm hooked and fucking I'm invested fully into this. I was never like that. It's one of those ones where I eventually come back to months and months down the line, and then found myself becoming a bit more invested. Like, I wouldn't say the first season fully drew me in. It was more when it came to season 2 that it dragged me in more. So obviously we'll start with season 1, which came out in 2022, and obviously it's the first, obviously, introduction to all these characters and your main character, and obviously it focuses on them in the early stages of Blue Lock, which involves them going through training, which includes you basically gotta kick the ball at people in this room. Last person with the ball loses. Obviously, it's a small room. And obviously you can't use your hands, you pretty much can only use your feet. And say the last person who loses is booted out of Blue Lock, because the whole point of this camp is at certain points you will generally just get kicked out, and while others will advance to the next stage. So that was like one of the things I did early on. Then the next one, which is kind of probably what drew me a bit more in, was when they actually did they actually started playing football properly in this facility. So it had them create multiple teams of players, obviously, and they had big ass matches with where it was obviously the first, where obviously they had 2 halves, and they just basically play. I think if I remember correctly, the first like matches was just a case of you play until it's over. Because I know at one point it becomes like the first of 5. That's like something like kind of they practically go with a lot of the times. But if I remember correctly, this part of it, I'd say it's been a few weeks since I actually watched this little bit of it. If I remember correctly, the first part of it, it's, you know, you score as many as you friggin' like an actual football match. And obviously the funny thing with this is the case of, well, they're all strikers, so they've all got to try and work in a lot of them times in positions that they're not used to. So for example, like one guy literally has to sacrifice himself for every team basically to play a goalkeeper. So that's kind of an interesting thing, because that person then doesn't really get a chance to shine. But to be fair, the one obviously on the team you're following, he does get a lot of time to shine, where like he generally makes some decent saves in pivotal moments, where it's the case of they score, it's game over. And they do have some moments where like he's making some really good saves. But of course, the main full focus is the outfield players, and obviously what they kind of do is they have a part where they kind of rotate one position. I think it's like clockwise or anti-clockwise. I think it's clockwise they go. So basically, you're not always going straight from defense to striker. So you'll say you're in centre back position, and you go clockwise. You'll say you're on the left side of the centre back. You'll then become the left back. Then you start becoming the outfield player until you get to that point. So that kind of get to that point because obviously the first match, as you guess, it's just a clusterfuck. They get destroyed, and they got to try and figure out the best opportunity to not get destroyed in the future. And that's the kind of the method they go. And so there's a lot of really cool moments where characters get their time to shine, get to showcase their skills, and obviously they're pushing the story, and they're pushing this group to kind of actually slowly become an actual group of friends who know what they're doing. And then they kind of start throwing the curveballs. So once that part of the arc's done, they then go into the next level, which is like a one-on-one situation where you're dealing with like an android, well, a hologram technically, sorry, and you gotta try and get past that. Obviously, once you get past that, you're in another room, and it's like the first. You kind of have to pick a team of 3 in that room because the next arc is you're at a point of you need a team of 3. You go against another team of 3. You beat that team of 3. You then can choose. Oh, I want that player off that team. I'm taking that player. You then have to go. If you lost, then you go to the 2-on-2 room. If you won, then you go into a 4-on-4 room, and it keeps going on like that until obviously you get to play the All Stars basically. And that's the other arc that kept drawing me in even more because there's some really cool moments where there's some unique teams formed of players that obviously have had history of each other, either in a good sense or in a bad sense. So, for example, there's a character they always refer to as the King. He's pretty much hot-headed. He likes to do it all himself. He's very much kind of like, he's got to be clearly like a Ronaldo sort of reference with the ego side of the character. And like that's his whole thing. He just wants to score himself. He doesn't give a shit about anyone else, and that's how he kind of runs. Runs the entire time he's on this show. So you get unique moments like that, and then as I say, as you're going along, you're throwing in these more characters, these ones you haven't met, so you've been introduced to them, and that's pretty much most of the season 1 until you get to the point of the All-Star match against the 5-on-5 match with the best of the best players picked from all around the world that are the best at what they do. And as I say, it's one of those ones where it takes a little while to get going. This series does. As I say, it took a while for me to get fully drawn in, to get fully invested with Blue Lock. But when they got to that first part, when they actually had this huge team, these proper 11-on-11 type matches, that's when it kind of started to draw me in more. That's when I started to get more invested in the show. And then so they start throwing these curveballs with obviously these, trimming them down to these 3-on-3s, 2-on-2s, 4-on-4s, that sort of arc. It throws curveballs like that, but they're interesting. I think the only thing that kind of annoys me with this is whenever they start getting to the point of this is really working, they throw a curveball of they lose and it's back to square one. That happens quite a lot, and that kind of annoys me. I get the idea of you get knocked down, you get back up again. The idea of you lose, but that probably helps you figure out how to win going forward. I get that idea, but it's kind of annoying when it happens so many times, and especially when you get to the later part of this, the last section of this show, season 1, where, as I say, you get into these more smaller, compact matches. When you get into there and you're getting these characters introduced, and you get these characters working as teams, you're constantly getting thrown in a position where that team you're following isn't the team that's going to be you're following the entire time. So you get used to, for example, when they go into the 2-on-2 situation, and you bring in the King character into the group, then you bring in Nagi into the group. You're getting used to these characters. They're getting used to each other. They're really good to be around. There's some really good comedy between them, because this show does have some decent comedy at times, and there's some good like bonding moments between them. And then you lose, and it's just like, oh, now this character's part of this other team, and it kind of gets like that, and it kind of gets annoying at times because you can't get too attached to characters. Yes, I get the idea of you're kind of not meant to. You're meant to be following this main character. Obviously, if I get out my phone right now, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see. So you're meant to be following this character the entire time. So it's kind of the idea of you're not meant to get attached to like all these other characters. This is the movie poster, by the way. I'm just working off of some of these images. So you're not meant to get used to all these characters, which, okay, kind of makes sense to say because you're following this main one. But at the same time, it's like, some of these other characters are kind of interesting, and I would like to actually get to know them a bit more, because some of them have got really cool skills. For example, which is something that's not brought up into the second series, obviously Nagi's friend, his character literally is basically the taskmaster of this universe. He can literally copy anyone's moves, and I like that. It's pretty cool, because obviously each character has their own unique ability, because obviously most animes tend to have a character having their own special power. Obviously the main character you're following, he can essentially create any scenario in his mind and work off that. Like, he creates essentially like a jigsaw puzzle and is like, okay, this is the correct path we need to take. As well as his, as he says all the time, his direct shot, which is his best move. Obviously, there's a character who's really good at dribbling, so there's a lot of showcase with that. Obviously, there's characters that are super speedy, so there's always focus on that. So each character has unique abilities that get them through, and there's a couple of characters that are very much the same, but most of the time, most characters have their own special ability that no one else can match, or if they can match, the one's going to be better than the other. Which, as I say, there's some really cool visual moments when they utilize these powers, because the visuals in this show obviously utilize a mixture of the traditional 2D animation, which is nice to look at, but then obviously there's a lot of like CGI 3D animation when obviously they're running a lot of times and certain like shots, and that can be a bit janky at times, but I look past it because I'm looking more at the story itself and some of the other visuals, and they stand out more than that. And the characters as well, because the characters are pretty interesting. There's a couple of characters that I go, not really a big fan of them, but majority I do tend to enjoy watching. And as I say, I like that most characters, they have unique colours attached to, like, when they're going full power, essentially. So like a lot of times their eyes will change colour, so the main character's eyes go blue a lot of times. There's characters that will go green, red, purple. I like that. That's pretty cool. Well, I wish we got to see more of some of these characters' abilities. Hopefully, we get to see more in future seasons. As I say, I've never read the manga, so I don't really know too much. So hopefully some more get spotlights, because there's a few I've had their moments, and they've been pretty interesting. So I'd like to see others get their moments as well, because there's one character that pretty much gets written out of this show. And I believe they're supposed to be coming back. Spoiler alert there. I believe they're supposed to be coming back. So I would like to see let them get a full spotlight. But still, I think season 1, let's say it's a slow start, but when it gets fully into the action, it's really fun to watch. Some really good football moments, some really cool moments where the characters are using their powers. There's some unique twists and turns in the story. Yes, they can be a bit annoying at sometimes when there's multiple times they're losing, but overall they're still interesting when they the paths they still are following. And obviously it all builds up to the big moment where they're getting ready to face the under-20s Japanese team, obviously, which is the big arc for season 2. But I think for season 1, for the introduction series, I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. It's good. I wouldn't say it's my favourite anime, and I wouldn't say it's the worst one you see. It's good, because it's got some good visuals at times. Yes, there's some janky ones at times as well. It's got a good story, got good characters, and it's got some good, obviously, action moments. It's just I'd like to see some of these characters get more spotlights in the future, and I would like to see them less losing all the time, because that can get a bit tedious when you're finally getting into it and then they're losing. It's like, for fuck's sake. So that kind of is a frustration, but as I say, it's one of those ones where I can understand it at the same time. But still, obviously next up is what followed the season 1, which is in 2024, which was the movie, which is referred to as Blue Lock episode Nagi, which obviously focuses on the character Nagi, who's this kind of like, doesn't really want to be there, but when he goes into action, he's this like fucking badass. He's like unstoppable. He's like one of the best players available. And obviously this movie focuses on him before he joins Blue Lock. Obviously him and his best friend, their origin, and them heading into Blue Lock. And there's some interesting new sequences that you've never seen before at the start. But it's when you get into Blue Lock, because I honestly thought this was set all before Blue Lock. I didn't actually read into it fully and all the details, but this is actually essentially a retelling of the Blue Lock season 1, but from their perspective. So there's a lot of shots you would have seen already. There's a lot of recap sequences, and that's kind of blended in with some new scenes. So when they do the new scenes, they're actually pretty good. I've heard they've actually cut, obviously from the manga, obviously, which is this specific story is based on. I heard there's actually some more stuff that they didn't use, which is kind of annoying. Kind of annoying they went with that in favor. Obviously, so they went in favor of recapping a lot of season 1 already, with it instead of actually putting this new stuff in. But so when it goes to the new stuff, it's really interesting to see this character get more of a spotlight. Not just him, obviously his best friend. But so when it gets to the point of it's recapping a lot, it kind of becomes tedious, especially considering I just watched season 1 beforehand. I feel like maybe if I didn't watch season 1 in the days and weeks before watching this, it wouldn't have been so bad, because as I say, this came out in 2024, 2 years after the first season came out. So you can argue that's kind of what it's there for, is to recap a little bit, ready for season 2, so people know, remind themselves a bit of what they're getting into. So you can kind of argue that, but if you're watching it from perspective of, oh, I'm new to this, I'm binge watching the whole thing, it kind of is a bit annoying that it's just a recap movie. See, I didn't watch this in cinema because obviously, as I say, at the point I wasn't into Blue Lock. But if I watched this in cinema, yeah, it would have been cool to see some of these recap sequences on the big screen. But at the same time, I feel like I would have been let down in the fact that it's basically just a recap with new scenes added. Not like it's a case of the Demon Slayer Mugen Train arc or the Spikes Family movie, Code White, where there are basically brand new stories. Yes, there was some level of reminder at times of the past. Certain shots were just reminders of what happened before, but nearly the entire film was brand new footage, a brand new story, and I'm cool with that. It's just, I feel like if you went into this and not expected it to be a recap and then got a lot of more recap than you thought you were going to get, it's kind of is a bit of a blow. But I still think it's still an entertaining film, because Nagi is an intriguing character because of his personality, the fact that he doesn't want to be there, he doesn't want to do anything, but it's interesting to see fully his side of the story, and what he's kind of going through. And not just him, obviously his friend, who's this rich guy, who only wants Nagi to be the best of the best. He wants to help him get there, and it's kind of interesting to see his perspective of seeing him rise into that potential while kind of splitting away from him. So there is a lot of interesting moments to this movie, as when they introduce this new footage. At the start of it is pretty much brand new. I think maybe one or two shots were from the anime, but majority of it is brand new, and that's pretty cool. And I say up until the point they go to Blue Lock, I'm invested. It's a really interesting movie, pretty entertaining. There's some, obviously, watching them rise to becoming the best players in their team. That's all pretty cool. It's just when it goes to Blue Lock, it becomes hit and miss for me. It becomes this film, where it's just like you're seeing some new stuff, but a large chunk of this is what you've already seen. It's kind of annoying. Yes, I get the idea of it's from his perspective, so you're seeing some of the stuff from a new set of eyes, but I feel like, from what I've read, there's some stuff they've cut out. You probably should have prioritized the new stuff over the old stuff, and you probably could have got away with, because obviously I know they do like a montage to recap a bunch of this show. They probably could have either cut that down or added more into it to cut down some of this stuff you've already seen and just put full focus on the new footage going in. But so that does kind of drag it down a bit, and it does make it a bit less entertaining than the actual anime. But I don't know, it's just one of those ones where I feel like it could have been better. It could have been worse. I think the new stuff does make up for just a lot of the recap, so I feel like maybe a bit generous. 7 out of 10 for the movie. Maybe a bit generous, but it's, I'd say, maybe the case of if I watched it months after obviously I completed the anime, maybe then I wouldn't have had this same feeling. But I think I finished the final episode of season 1, and within like 10 minutes I stuck the movie on, and going from the opening of that movie where it's brand new footage to just a lot of what I've already seen kind of pissed me off a little bit, if I'm being honest. Yeah. So I feel like 7 is good enough. It's entertaining. I feel like if you haven't watched the anime, or if you have watched it and you watched it months and months and months ago, then it's fine. It's not a problem. It's just on a watch straight after watching the anime, it can kind of be a bit annoying that it's just a recap rather than just something brand new. But then I've seen people say that, obviously, the people that I've watched, obviously, I've seen reviews where people have watched the actual anime, I'm guessing months before, and I've got in to watch this movie, and I've been like, oh, this is not what I expected. This isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So it's one of those ones where pretty just depends on the person. If they don't mind a lot of recap, just to remind themselves before season 2, or if they just hate the recap idea of it. So it's just, they probably could have chose some better methods, but I feel like a 7 is okay enough. So then that brings us to the second season, which obviously followed the movie and came out in 2024. And the second series focuses on, it's a shorter series. First series was like 24 episodes, I think it was. Series 2 is about what? Let me just double check it. Season 2 locks in at 14 episodes. So it's a good 10 episodes shorter than season 1. But similar to season 1, it does take a little while to get going. The first few episodes, again, for me, I wasn't fully wow with. Obviously, they were kind of bringing in the characters again, throwing in the idea of what's going to come, and trying to get them to the point of who's my starting 11 for this big game against the under-20s. And they do some interesting stuff where they kind of split them all up into smaller groups. They've got specific players, the best of the ones who've actually scored against, well, not the ones who scored against, the ones who scored the highest points, and they've all got ranks of 1 to 6, and they're split up then into like 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and then they've obviously got, they play all the games pretty much, and then they've got multiple duos teaming up with, trios teaming up with them. So you're getting a lot of new characters in this arc as well, which is pretty cool. There's some interesting ones. So like there's a ninja character. There's kind of like he's very much got like a country sort of farmer type voice, which is pretty funny. What's the other one you got? Hold on. The episode is actually called after the other guy. I can't remember his fucking ability. I know the ninja guys, the idea is obviously he's super quick. Oh, the assassin. That's it. So he basically targets your weakness and constantly utilize that to get the advantage over you. Whereas the ninja character is more obviously the idea of he's super fucking fast. As soon as you're not locking eyes, he's gone. He's behind you. He's using his obviously abilities to get around and up the flank, up the wing. So obviously getting a lot of these characters you haven't seen before. You obviously getting a lot of characters you have seen before. And early on, it's about them trying to figure out the best partnership, the best 11 to take on this team. And so when it starts getting going, it gets better. And I found this one, as I say, if I look at my IMDb ratings on here for the second series, because the first series, like I gave obviously a lot of 8s, and it was really episode 5 when it kicked off for me. But then it was one of those ones where it was up, down, up, down, up, down at times. Whereas season 2, bear in mind, it was episode 6 was the first one when I gave like a pretty decent, solid rating of like a 9 out of 10. But I found from episode 6, it was consistent for a couple of episodes, and then fully went into being like this really solid, really engaging, entertaining show. So as I say, it was just like the early arc before they become a full squad was when it kind of was a bit slow again. But say when it finally got there, when it finally was like, okay, this is the team we're picking, that's when it started fully drawing me, and when they became, obviously when they went into the Blue Lock 11 versus the under-20s, because they're packed into this massive stadium, all the fans are invested, and we're getting a lot of individual character moments showing not just on Blue Lock's side, but getting a lot of individual character moments from the under-20 side. This new group of players who Blue Lock are looking to surpass. So there's some really cool moments seeing them at work, because I think what makes this even better is obviously because the under-20s, they aren't all strikers. There's defenders, midfielders. There's actual players built for their position. So we get to see players that are built to play those positions, not like Blue Lock where it's players where they're all strikers and they're kind of thrown in positions. But to be fair, I feel like as the show has been going on, a lot of these players are probably more adapted to the positions they've been taking. Like, for example, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the character that's the speed-based one, he plays a lot more of the wing and the wing back. So he suits that more for me because his speed. There's a character, he's not in it a massive amount, but main reason I just recognise who he is basically his entire vision is pretty much covered by his hair. He definitely is suited more for a defensive standpoint at times, and so is Nagi's friend, who, as I say, can utilise abilities to his advantage. His whole point of his single moment in the last arc of this series is he's been watching the entire game. He's been mimicking players' abilities. Their best defender, he now has his abilities, and I like that. I like that, again, a lot of these characters, a lot of ones that, again, haven't really had moments to shine yet, are finally getting their moments to shine. Yes, there's still full focus on your main character, but overall, you're still getting a lot of focus on these individual characters and showing them utilising their technique. As I say, not just from Blue Lock, but from this new bunch of players from the under-20 side, which you haven't met, because both teams have a member of a family on them that hate each other. So that's a pretty interesting way to progress this story further. As the actual match itself, yeah, it's drawn out over multiple episodes, but that allows them to do these individual moments with characters, have these at times beautiful visuals. Yes, there is some janky CG 3D moments at times, but overall, a lot of the visuals are outstanding. I said the visuals with the guy that can mimic attacks and obviously move sets are really good to watch. The moment where this one character snaps and goes full insane, the visuals around that are really good. And I say it's a really fun match, and I think it's where Blue Lock shines its best. It's season 2. Yes, again, it takes that little bit of time to get going, but I feel like when it gets going, it doesn't stop. It just keeps getting better and better and better until it's like just incredible to watch. And that's why I feel like I prefer Series 2, because I say Season 1, yes, it got better, but it had moments where it did drop off, and it was up and down for me personally. And then they followed up with a film, which I say was basically a recap at times, so that kind of even dropped even lower than Season 1. But I feel like Series 2, it has a goal now, has the goal of playing the under-21s. Season 1 doesn't really have that goal. Its main goal is just kind of pushing these characters through their limits in a Squid Games without the death side of Squid Games style of training. So it kind of pushes them, but it doesn't really have the end goal. It's got this end goal of becoming the best striker, but it's like, well, that's not going to happen in Season 1. So what's like where we're going fully with Season 1? There wasn't really this massive end goal. Whereas Season 2, it's got the end goal of playing Ninja 20s. We need to beat them. Blue Lock loses, Blue Lock shut down. If we win, we are the under 20s. So I like that this one's actually got purpose this time, and its shorter season definitely works. Because I know I've read some people saying that, I read sort of like a comment being like, oh, why didn't just do the under 20s story as the movie instead of the Nagi one? And obviously I saw someone fire back straight away saying it's too long for just a movie, and it's proved here. Like, if they did the match, then fair enough. They probably could have squeezed it into maybe a slightly longer movie, like a 2+ hour movie, but I feel like it definitely works better as a series. But as I say, because it has this end goal, it has something to get to, rather than something that's going to get to over multiple seasons. Like, for example, with Demon Slayer, its overall reason is they gotta kill Muzan. That's the whole point of it, but each season has its own quest, i.e., for example, Mugen Train Arc, it's defeating the train, obviously, the demon that's controlling this train. Entertainment District, it's defeating the twins. Swordsmith, it's defeating, obviously, the demons that are attacking, the high-ranking demons that are attacking, obviously, the Swordsmith Village. It has that sort of end goal. So I like that, and I think that's what makes this a much better season. So, yeah, as I said, the 20s match is excellent to watch. The individual moments to shine are really fun and interesting to watch. It's, again, it has the mixture of some janky visuals, but really solid visuals. And I just think, as I say, overall, Season 2 is a much better series, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with Series 3. Hopefully, it kind of has the same feel as Season 2 with it has an end goal rather than just... it's just the episodes are just happening as it is. But I don't know. I've not actually looked into where the manga goes. I don't want to because I don't want it being spoiled. So we'll just see where Season 3 goes, which I'm guessing will more than likely be next year, because I don't think it'll be this year. I don't think they've announced anything this year. So I'm guessing it'll be 2026. So I'm guessing it'll be like every 2 years more than likely. It would have been more fun if it was every 4 years, because of, obviously, that's like the World Cup. It's like the whole point of this show is they're trying to get to the World Cup. Really funny because that's every 4 years, but you know, I'd rather have it every 2 years than every 4. But still, I think Series 2 as an overall, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I say it starts slow, improves, and just keeps improving until the point it gets to the actual match, and the match is the standout of the show, and probably the standout of the 2 seasons and the movie so far. Because that's where I find this show thrives, is when it has the matches. That's when it becomes kind of what you get into, a football anime. It's just when, obviously, it's just some of the build up to it can just drag at times, and it can be a hit and miss. But I say when it gets to the point of matches, it's where it thrives. And Series 2 is where this, at the moment, this adaptation thrives. So yeah, so okay, quick recap. If you just a reminder, Series 1 I gave an 8, the movie I gave a 7, and Series 2 I gave a 9. So clearly 2-1 movie is my current ranking if I was just to do a ranking on that. But still, so yeah, obviously if you've seen Blue Lock Season 1, Series 2, or the movie, any of them, I feel like if you've seen Series 2, you've got to watch Series 1. But if you've seen any of them, put your thoughts on it in the comments below. If you've read the manga, put your thoughts on the manga in the comments below. What you would like to see them adapt, and what you think they've got right and what got wrong with the adaptation so far. Obviously, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, and on YouTube. And obviously, you can check out all my other gaming videos as well. They're all available. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.